dragon is dancing again, and this time, the world is lining up to watch. For years, Washington stood firmly at the center of global diplomacy, but now, something unusual is happening in Beijing. One by one, the leaders of the world's biggest powers are arriving in China. Presidents, prime ministers, NATO allies, strategic rivals, even America's closest partners. And together, their visits are revealing a major shift in global geopolitics. In just the past year, 6 of the 7 G7 leaders have either visited China or hosted major summits with Xi Jinping. And remarkably, 5 of those visits came within only the last 6 months. Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi met Xi Jinping on sidelines of APEC summit to ease off tensions, but instead found herself ambushed after triggering crisis over her remarks on Taiwan. French President Emmanuel Macron arrived first, pushing for economic cooperation while carefully navigating tensions over Ukraine and trade. Then came British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, reopening high-level dialogue between London and Beijing after years of frozen relations. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney followed, seeking stability in trade ties despite mounting disagreements over security and foreign interference allegations. Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz visited amid growing concerns inside Europe about tariffs, supply chains, and China's dominance in electric vehicles and industrial manufacturing. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez made his own Beijing trip focused heavily on investment, green energy cooperation, and balancing Europe's relationship with China. And then came the biggest visit of all, Donald Trump. The American president's arrival in Beijing became one of the most closely watched diplomatic moments of the year. Red carpets, military bands, Great Hall ceremonies. The symbolism was impossible to ignore, because while Washington and Beijing remained strategic competitors, Trump still came to China seeking deals on trade, rare earth minerals, Iran, and broader geopolitical stability. Vladimir Putin landed in Beijing. The Russian president received another grand welcome from Xi Jinping, reinforcing the growing Russia-China partnership at a moment when Moscow remains locked in confrontation with the West. 2 rival power centers of the global system, both converging on Beijing within days of each other. That was not coincidence. That was choreography, and Xi Jinping was directing the stage. But the story goes beyond the G7. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung visited Beijing shortly after Xi's own trip to Seoul. Vietnamese leader To Lam reaffirmed deep strategic coordination with China. Slowly, China is positioning itself as the meeting point of nearly every major geopolitical conversation on Earth. Ukraine, Iran, Taiwan, trade wars, artificial intelligence, energy security, global supply chains. Increasingly, all roads seem to pass through Beijing. And that reflects a much deeper reality. The world is moving toward multipolarity. American power remains enormous, but countries across Europe, Asia, the Gulf, and the global South are no longer betting on only one center of influence. Instead, they are balancing Washington against Beijing, balancing security ties against economic interests, balancing ideology against strategic necessity. That balancing act explains why even close American allies continue making the journey to China. Because whether nations trust Beijing or fear it, they cannot ignore it. China today sits at the center of global manufacturing, controls critical mineral supply chains, dominates huge sections of clean energy infrastructure, and increasingly influences the diplomatic calculations of both allies and rivals alike. The images coming out of Beijing are sending a clear message to the world. The dragon is no longer waiting quietly on the sidelines of global power. It wants to lead the dance itself. And increasingly, the world is showing up to the ballroom.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to Mirror Now.